Driving for rideshare companies like Uber and Lyft is tough, and since these companies have actually come on the scene, they've drastically dropped their fares, which has hurt the drivers in their pocket. I mean, the drivers still have to cover their expenses, stuff like fuel, registration, insurance, maintenance, and of course vehicle depreciation. But you know what, there is something they can do about those costs to hopefully get more money back in their pockets. So many Uber and Lyft drivers think they need to go buy or lease a brand new car to do Uber and Lyft. Now the thing is, that's a terrible idea. And when you go buy a brand new car, basically it's going to have a lot of depreciation as soon as you leave the lot. Add that to the fact that you're going to be putting on tons of miles on this thing, and it's just going to depreciate like crazy. Eventually you're going to be upside down. Now I actually worked at a vehicle dealership for a while, and I used to see people that drove rideshare come in to trade in to get a new car. And the thing is, they had so many miles on these cars that they were so far upside down that they actually owed thousands of dollars more than the vehicle was worth in trade-in. Now, as you can see, that pretty much negates any profits they were actually making doing Uber and Lyft. And so what about leases? Well, when you originally sign a deal to lease a car, you've actually agreed upon a certain amount of mileage that you're not going to go over for the period of time that you're leasing the car. And when you go to turn the car back in, you're going to get charged at an amount roughly about 25 cents per mile for every mile you've gone over that amount. So as you can see, if you're going to put a lot of miles on it doing rideshare, you're going to get stuck with a bill at the end that's going to scare you to death. So it's a bad idea to lease a car to Uber or Lyft. And Uber does have their own subprime leasing program. When you can look online, a lot of people have problems with it, and they've actually, paying like $700, $800, $900 a month for a car, and they have to keep driving just to make that payment. And when all is said and done, they're really not making a whole lot of money. All right, so how do you avoid falling into this trap? Well, what you got to do is you look online, and you can see that Uber allows a 15-year-old car currently in Los Angeles. Other markets might be different, and that goes back to 2002 currently. Lyft will let you use a car going back to 2004 model year. So as you can see, you don't need to use a brand new car. There's plenty of cars out there on Craigslist or in other classified ad sites that you can buy and you can use for these services. Now, 2 years ago, I actually bought a 2000 Ford Taurus station wagon for $800. I used it for about 6 months on Uber. I put about 7,500 miles on it. Now, I did do some minimal repairs to it, but nothing major. At the end of my time using the car, I was actually able to sell the car on Craigslist and actually made a profit on the car, and even was able to use it for rideshare services for all those months. So after about 2 years of not doing rideshare, I decided to look on Craigslist to see if I could find an even cheaper car that I could get approved for these services. After about 2 weeks of looking at some pretty bad cars and actually not being able to get to cars in time to buy them and someone else actually picking up the deal, I finally found this 2004 Buick Regal with 115,000 miles. Now, the description was pretty much non-existent in the ad. There were no photos, and the header actually just said car for sale in Azusa. So they probably didn't get any calls on it. So what I did is I called them because, you know what, it was only 15 minutes from my house. I figured I would take a chance and go look at it. Now, it wasn't a bad car. It had some clear coat issues. The inside smelled like an ashtray because the guy was a smoker. But, the family had to get rid of the car because the old man had passed on. They didn't know exactly what was going on with the car. I checked it out. Everything worked okay. The air conditioning worked, which is important. It had an AM/FM CD player. The interior wasn't bad. It just needed to be clean. So I picked up this car. It had about 6 months worth of penalties for back use for the DMV. So I threw him a lowball offer at $500, and you know what? I got the car, and I even drove it home. Now, this was the only spot where the paint was really bad. I think I have a picture I'll show you of what it used to look like. I actually just got some sandpaper and I wet sanded the clear coat problem, and then I just literally hit it with some just generic hardware store clear coat paint. I mean, it's not perfect. It looks like I just did a bad job waxing it. From a distance you can't really tell, and unless you get up close to it, or if at night you can barely tell there's any problem there. And that's the only part the paint was really that bad, other than the bumpers, which I just waxed. I actually wound up washing and waxing the entire car. It probably hadn't been done in years. Who knows if it had ever been done. But the bumpers particularly had a clear coat issue. I actually put like multiple layers of wax on it. I probably will still do that. It actually didn't come out that bad. I mean, most people don't care. It doesn't have any dents. It's just a little bit of a clear coat issue. And I did both the front and rear bumpers this way. And overall, I think it came out pretty good. But you know what? For $500, who cares? The interior actually came out really clean. After I scrubbed the carpets, I cleaned the seats, I put new floor mats in it, and I freshened up. You can't even tell it was ever smoked in. In fact, the guy at the Uber inspection station remarked at how clean this car was for a 2004 model year. Now, there's only two places where the interior really had any problems. One of them was on the steering wheel, which had been sun-baked from being out in the sun. And so what I did was I went to Pep Boys. I got a $15 steering wheel cover, covered it right up. The other thing is there's like a little bit of a rip in the driver's seat right here. I mean, nothing major, but you know what? When my fat butt is over it, nobody will ever see it. Now, as for a motor, this car actually has the 3800 V6 motor. It's considered to be one of the best motors that General Motors ever produced. I mean, these things are bulletproof. You go online, people have 300,000 miles on these engines, and they're still growing strong. I mean, sure, it's not going to get the gas mileage of a Prius, but after you pull a long day and long shifts driving, guess what? Your back's not going to hurt like it would if you were driving a Prius. So you know what? I got my rideshare car for $500. Not $500 down payment, not $500 a month, but $500 cash, and I got the pink slip. And you know what? I'm driving this thing. I'm making money. People are actually commenting how nice it is inside this car. And you know what? I'm sure I'm going to run into other issues. I'm sure I'm going to have to pay for some maintenance and some repairs and things like that. But I'm going to document all that. And I'm going to see how much money I can make off this car and how far I can push it. I'm going to document it all right here on this YouTube channel. So be sure to subscribe. And if you see me out on the roads of LA, hey, say hi.